If you find that your car's windshield has a chip, crack, or bullseye in it, don't be so fast to call someone out to replace the entire windshield or even to come out and fix it. Because with this kit for less than 20 bucks, you might be able to do it yourself, and it's worth a try. Now, many years ago, we do this repair with a $2,000 kit with complicated parts and vacuums, and sometimes it caused more damage. But with this kit from Rain-X, it has everything you need. You have your instructions, mounting hardware that holds this pressure tube and plunger, a bottle of resin, a razor blade, and a bunch of curing strips. The idea is that you'd center this pressure tube over the chip using this mounting hardware. You put resin inside of it. That tube will have a grommet or almost like a gasket at the bottom that you're going to want to use it to push up against the windshield and seal it up a little bit. But then you drop the resin in there, use the plunger to push that resin into the crack, and hopefully that's all we'll need to make this crack disappear. So let's give it a try. First thing, if you have a heat gun, have that ready to go on the inside of your vehicle. If you don't have one, you could probably use a hair dryer in its place. If you can, start this with the car either in a garage or parked in some shade. We're going to start off by cleaning with a paper towel the surface of the window, and I'm going to use some compressed air to just get any kind of dirt or loose glass out of there. The razor blade that it comes with, the instructions will tell you to use the razor blade and scrape out anything that might be loose in there. I'm just going to blow it out one more time with some air, and now it's ready for the work. A critical part of this is to center this mounting hardware over the chip or over the crack. Because when we put that tube in, we want it to seal right above wherever that crack is. So take your time getting this in the right position. Don't push down on the suction cups too hard, because if you have any cracks, you might end up spidering and making those cracks worse than they are. So just enough to get this thing secured onto the glass. With the base securely mounted, screw on the larger of the two tubes here. This is I'm going to call it a pressure tube. Screw it down until it makes contact with the windshield. There's almost like a rubber gasket at the bottom, and you want to kind of make a seal there. So you don't want it to be super tight where you're pushing pressure now on and deforming the shape of the windshield, but you want it to be nice and snug to help that resin stay in place. With that tube fully seated, go ahead and pour some resin inside of it. You don't have to go crazy, a little goes a long way. But once the resin is in there, take the other tube, start to screw it in slowly. And that's going to start to push the resin into the bullseye, into the crack slowly. And we're going to let that sit for a while. To help this along, you can go inside the vehicle and use a heat gun to warm up and really help that resin flow. Just don't keep the heat gun on there too long. Just a little bit of heat works. At this point, if you can move your vehicle into direct sunlight, it'll help. Also, after a couple minutes, remove this plunger, add a couple more drops of the resin, and reinstall. Now we're going to let that cure for a little bit. Also, if you find some of the resin starting to drip down the surface of the windshield, just give that bottom tube a little bit of a turn. Not too tight. You'd rather have it drip out than to try to put too much pressure on that crack. But make sure you have a good seal. After about 4 or 5 minutes, we're going to take this apart. I'm going to start by unscrewing this entire plunger here, just so that it's off the windshield, and then pulling up these suction cups. I'm using a razor blade, so I'm not pulling too hard on this entire assembly. Just the corner of the razor blade will pop these free. Once you take this off, do a quick visual inspection. If any of the resin has dried higher than the surface of the windshield, go ahead and scrape it off with the razor blade. Remember to keep the blade perpendicular to the glass, and you don't have to be too gentle. You can use some force in getting this off. Now, this is already looking pretty good, but I'm going to come back in and just put a couple more drops of resin on it, and then gently lay down a curing strip, and we're going to let this sit for another 5 minutes. You don't have to mash it down or push it hard, just as long as you see the resin come in contact between the window and the sheet. Now, this has been sitting in direct sunlight for about 15 minutes. I'm going to come back and take off this curing strip. Use the razor blade to scrape off any excess resin. I'm really glad with the way this repair came out. For less than $20, we were able to make this chip disappear, a lot less than getting a new windshield or having somebody come out and fix it. The kit comes with plenty of extra curing strips, so theoretically you could even repair a long crack on your windshield, or at the very least, make it less visible and stop it from getting worse. I like making these videos to show how easy it is to do some of these things on your own and to save a ton of money while doing it. I'll put links below to some of the things I've used, and if you use my links, I will earn a whole 17 cents.